Well, if you work in the media or the PR space, there's a common complaint I hear all the time. Why won't TV stations come and cover my story or my event? Well, there are a lot of reasons why, but there are 5 things you can do as a PR pro to make sure your message is still getting out there, even if the news says no. We're going to talk about all that and more coming up on this episode of Press Play. If you work in the nonprofit sector, you should absolutely be using artificial intelligence in 2025. My name is Jeromee Scot. I'm the CEO of Scot Media Tulsa. I'm also a certified AI business consultant. At Scot Media Tulsa, we can help you create engaging social media content, write scripts for fundraising galas, come up with ideas for donor engagement or volunteer efforts. There is so much AI can help you do in 2025 that won't require you to hire extra staff. If you're interested in learning more about our services, you can visit our website at scotmediatulsa.com. Well, welcome back to another episode of Press Play. I'm your host, Jeromee Scot. I'm really excited about today's topic because this is something that I've dealt with for years. It's also a complaint I hear all the time as an active journalist. So let's say you have an event or some sort of a press announcement and you want to make sure it gets covered. But then you get the dreaded no-show, or a producer says we can't send anybody. So is that story dead? Well, the answer to that's no. And there are things you can do as a media professional to make sure that your message is still getting out there, but there are things you have to know in order to make sure that the TV stations are actually going to use it. So we're going to go through those step by step to make sure that you still get the coverage that you need, even when the news says no. So the first one is one that is really kind of obvious if you watch television on a regular basis. But with social media, a lot of people don't really think about this. So let's say that you have a ribbon cutting or some sort of a heartwarming event or even breaking news. If you have video that you have shot and you want the news to use it, it needs to be horizontal. So when you watch television or go to the movies, the screen that you're looking at is horizontal. But a lot of times people will send in vertical videos. It's a big no-no when it comes to TV news. Our TV broadcasts are optimized for horizontal video. Now, if you're shooting something for social media, you're going to want to shoot it vertically. What I find is that you can shoot it horizontal so that you're covered for both TV and social. And then if you want it specifically for social, then you go through and you just crop it out. But TV stations generally are going to want horizontal video. It's going to fill the screen. It's going to make your interview subject or your guest or your event look even better. But you have to flip the phone sideways. You can't send in vertical video and expect a journalist to use it. Sometimes they will delete it and move on only because it's vertical. Sometimes they'll try to crop it, which then makes it look pixelated or bad. So as the media person, it's your job to make sure that your message is getting out there the best way possible. The first step you need to make sure you're doing is turning that phone sideways. Send in horizontal video. It will make a big difference. As a news producer, I once got a great video package that was given to us by a media professional. It had to do with something on a hospital property. And because of patient privacy laws, journalists couldn't come in. We weren't allowed to bring in a TV crew on property to interview a patient who had just gone through a medical procedure. So there are patient privacy laws that you have to worry about. And this is why this information is so good, specifically for people who work in the medical field. So we had gotten a link with a packet of pictures and video clips. All were horizontal. They all were great. So once we started going through it, we quickly realized that the camera was really shaky. The person who shot it, the communications person, didn't have a tripod or didn't have one of a stabilizer. Sometimes that's okay, and you can get around that. But generally speaking, the producers are going to have a higher standard for video than you might have on social media. So make sure that you are holding that as steady as you can because you don't want super shaky video. You also don't want one long continuous video, 4 or 5 minute clip of someone just walking around a room getting ready to shoot something else. So do it in segments. Shoot smaller pieces of video, about 20 to 30 seconds each. Make sure that they are steady. It's going to go a long way. Also, make sure that it's well lit. There have been a couple times when I've received video in the past that's really dark. There's a flash on your phone for a reason. You can certainly use that. You can also purchase an external light for very cheap on Amazon. I'm using one to shoot this video. So, I mean, lighting really will make or break. If you're doing a Zoom interview, you're going to position a light in front of the camera because you know that's going to make you look better. Same thing applies when you're shooting to video that you want on the air. Make sure you have an external light, or make sure that the interview subject, if you're interviewing someone or you're shooting a scene, is facing the light. Sometimes the light from a window will work even better than an external light. But make sure your body's not blocking the light. Make sure the camera is not blocking the light. You certainly don't want a video clip where the shadow of you holding the camera is on the person's chest or on their face. Position yourself so that you're not casting a shadow, but the subject is still looking toward the light. So not shaky and well lit, those two things will certainly make or break your shots. Now, speaking of interviews, is it okay for you as a media or PR person to interview someone else and then send that to the news? The answer to that's yes. Again, this oftentimes will be really helpful in a situation regarding patient privacy or even a government official who isn't available because of a breaking news situation. You don't want to be a PR person working for someone who is elected by the public, who gets into a habit of only shooting and getting out the message that you control 100%. That will create a distrust between the public or the media and your elected official. So as elected officials, it's important for the public and journalists to have access to them. However, there may be times like in a breaking news situation, or maybe you're a PR person who handles a police chief or a fire chief, and you're on the scene of breaking news and it's not safe for journalists to come over, or there may be any sort of reasons why journalists have to be kept back at a distance or away from the scene. You might have access to the official and you can certainly shoot a very quick interview with your phone, shot horizontally, with a good light and with a microphone, and then send that out. There are situations where that's okay, but the key to that is to make sure you're shooting clear and concise sound bites. So sound bites are very short clips that news producers or journalists will use to get a message out that isn't rambly. TV news broadcasts don't have a lot of time, so producers and journalists will write stories or choose snippets from interviews that are short and concise to fit well within their broadcast. So if you're going to shoot an interview, make sure that your subject is media trained and can provide clear and concise sound bites. It's okay to send those in. Journalists use them all the time. So my fourth tip is on the importance of getting a variety of shots if you are sending in video assets. So there's a saying in news that you should always shoot wide, medium, and tight. So that's a wide shot. If you're shooting a ribbon cutting, you want to shoot it from the very back. That shows the stage, it shows the crowd, it maybe shows a little bit of the scene as a whole from a wide perspective. Then you want to do medium. So then you either zoom in or preferably physically walk in. The reason is because moving the camera a little bit closer is going to look a lot better than a zoom will. A zoom is perfectly acceptable, but the quality is going to suffer. So if you can get the camera closer, that's even better, but do it in a medium space. So that would be like kind of walking into the crowd, maybe a little bit closer to the podium. And then you also want to shoot tight shots. So that would be tight shots of the speaker at the podium. You would then want to turn around and shoot tight shots of the crowd. You might want to shoot some logos. You would shoot people who are mingling about. You would shoot people walking around and gathering, people coming and going. Just think of a variety of shots that a journalist could use in their story. Again, they want more than just one shot. One shots can be appropriate in some situations, but generally you want a variety of shots. So when you're shooting, make sure you're moving around the camera in small clips, 30 seconds each is fine, in a wide, medium, tight format, and they're going to use a lot of that, and it's going to make your story look even better. So the fifth thing I would say is keep in mind how you send in your assets. That's almost just as important as making sure you have a wide variety of assets. So a lot of newsrooms are dealing with very heavy IT and security measures. You've probably heard or seen some instances over the past year or so where some newsrooms are being taken offline or off the air because of a security breach. And so as a result, newsrooms are really stepping up their security game, which means large files, large video clips are not going to get through. So if you've spent all the time shooting and editing something that's really nice and then you try to mail it and it never gets to anyone, what's the point? So I would highly recommend that you use Dropbox, WeTransfer. When I was in corporate communications, I would send in photos with a Google Drive link and they could download it that way. So how you send it in is almost more important than what you send in. So make sure you're doing it in a way that's easy for the journalist to access and will get through their spam filters. Now, the big question is read receipts. I get this one a lot, read or read, depending on what you say. I say read receipts. Should you enable read receipts so you know when a journalist or when a newsroom receives your item? I will say no, please do not do that. Those are annoying. You don't like getting them in your office. When you have Sally down the hallway that sends those receipts and you have to say yes or no every time, you get annoyed very quickly. Newsrooms operate the same way. And if you're sending a link like that to a news desk or the editor, usually that's not just one person. If you send it to a station's news desk, for example, that could go to reporters, editors, producers, managers, digital. So you're looking at 50 to 60 people who are getting your email. And if you have those receipts on, every single one of them is going to have to say yes or no. It's going to annoy a lot of people. And on top of that, it's going to make your inbox overflow with people saying that they've gotten your email. Yes, it's sometimes annoying not knowing whether or not someone went through, which is why I really emphasize the value of having those personal contacts in the newsroom. If you have a producer that you're friends with or a reporter that you kind of built a rapport with, once you send something in, just text them and say, hey, I just sent that in with videos and pictures from our ribbon cutting. I just want to make sure it actually went through. Can you just let me know? Then you're only asking one person. That person will say yes or no, and then you know it went through. Turn off those read receipts or read receipts, and you'll go a long way. Trust me, the producers and the people in the newsroom will really appreciate it. As someone who has worked in media relations for years, I know how annoying it can be to put all the effort into a press release or a media advisory and then find out that the newsroom couldn't make it for whatever reason. There might be breaking news they had to go to. People could have called in sick that day and they just don't have an extra photographer to go. Or maybe they just didn't think that it was worth the time. But producers might disagree. Some producers may still like your story if you take the time to package it up nicely and send it in. So don't be discouraged. Just be willing to take matters into your own hands and get the coverage that you want. You can do it by doing it in smart ways. And then it also has the benefit, once you put all that together, then you can use it on your own media platforms. So you can use it on your social media pages. You can use it on your website. You can put it in your newsletter. If it doesn't get used in the media, you still have all those assets because you took the time to go above and beyond to get those at the scene of whatever it is that you're trying to cover. You can use it at year-end reviews. You can use it in fundraising pamphlets. There's such a wide variety of opportunities for you to use those assets. So it's not a waste, even if you do send it into a newsroom and they don't use it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Press Play. If you like this, please make sure to like and subscribe. I would really appreciate if you shared it with some colleagues. We're building some momentum, but I can't do it without your help. We'll be back next week for another episode of Press Play.